My name is Roderick Mullens, and I have avoided this memory for longer than I served in uniform. In 1965, I was a ranger because I believed land could be understood, cataloged, respected. I believed soil was just soil. I was wrong about that last part, and everything else followed. There is a bend in the Eastern Service Trail past mile marker 14 where the ground turns black for no reason that ever made it into a report. No burned scars, no oil seep, no rot that explains it, just a slow, deliberate change in color like the earth decided it was done pretending. The first time I saw it, I marked it with a pencil note in my logbook and kept walking. That decision still wakes me up at night. The black soil didn't smell like decay. That was the first thing that should have stopped me. It smelled warm, metallic, like rain hitting hot stone. When I knelt and pressed my fingers into it, the ground held the impression longer than it should have, as if it needed a moment to decide whether to let go. I remember standing up too fast, brushing my hands on my trousers, feeling foolish for being unsettled by dirt. Animals avoided that bend. Deer tracks curved away from it in clean arcs. Birds never nested in the trees overhead, even though the branches were thick and sheltered. I told myself it was coincidence, then wrote unusual soil coloration in the margins and closed the book. Rangers are trained to move on unless there's blood, fire, or a body. None of those were present, not yet. A week later, my radio picked up a low hum when I passed the bend. Not static. A hum steady and deep like something breathing through packed earth. I tapped the casing, adjusted the dial, and the sound stopped the moment I stepped back onto normal ground. When I crossed again, it returned. That was the first time I felt watched by something that didn't need eyes. I told Ellis about it over coffee at the station. He laughed and said the soil was probably rich in minerals. "You're hearing rocks," he said. Ellis had been a ranger longer than me. I trusted him. 2 days later, he volunteered to walk the trail alone and take samples. He never came back before dark. Search protocol kicked in at sundown. Old trucks, paper maps spread across hoods, flashlights with weak yellow beams cutting through trees that suddenly felt closer together. We found Ellis's footprints easily enough. They were clear right up to the black bend. Then they stopped. Not scuffed, not dragged, just ended, toes pointed forward like he'd stepped off the world. His radio was lying half-buried in the dark soil, still humming. When I picked it up, the hum shifted in pitch, rising slightly, almost responsive. I dropped it without meaning to. The sound continued, and for a moment I thought I heard something underneath it, something patterned, like speech slowed down until it forgot how to be words. I didn't tell anyone that part. I logged equipment failure and marked the location for further review. The orders came verbally the next morning. No paperwork, no signatures. We were told to reroute the trail, adjust the map, and stop discussing the bend outside official channels. Ellis was listed as missing, presumed disoriented. The black soil was not mentioned again. I followed orders because that's what keeps a ranger employed, and because some part of me was relieved not to kneel there again. But the ground doesn't forget being touched. After that, I started noticing it elsewhere. Small patches at first. A boot print behind my cabin, darker than the surrounding earth. A smear near the truck tire that hadn't been there the night before. Each time, the same warmth. The same faint hum if I stood still long enough. I checked maps compulsively, tracing routes with my finger, making sure I hadn't crossed the bend again without realizing it. I had more than once. The soil was spreading, not fast, not obvious. Patient. Like it was waiting for something it recognized. Like it remembered Ellis better than we did. At night, I dreamed of standing at the bend, listening to the ground breathe, knowing that if I stepped forward, it would know my weight, my shape, my name. After Ellis disappeared, the forest seemed to tighten around that stretch of trail. Distances felt wrong. 100 yards took longer to walk. Sound didn't travel the way it used to. My boots struck the ground with a dullness that hadn't been there before, like the soil was learning how to absorb us. By late summer of 1965, the bend no longer appeared on newly printed maps. The ink simply skipped that curve, smoothing the trail into a lie. I still had older charts in my locker, folded and refolded until the creases were soft as cloth. I compared them obsessively, tracing the missing arc with my thumb. The land hadn't moved. Someone had decided we shouldn't acknowledge it. The hum followed me now, faint but persistent, especially at night. Sometimes it came up through the floorboards of my cabin, Sometimes it seemed to come from my own chest. I stopped sleeping with the radio on because even powered down, it clicked once every few minutes, like a heartbeat out of sync. Another ranger vanished in October. His name was Carver. He went out to check a downed tree and never called back. When we found his truck, the tires were clean, too clean, as if the road itself had rejected the weight. We found black soil under the accelerator pedal. Men in plain coats arrived. They asked how long the soil stayed warm after removal. One of them smiled when I hesitated. From then on, the forest was divided into what we could talk about and what we couldn't. We were instructed to burn certain pages from the logbooks. I watched dates curl into ash, watched Ellis's name disappear line by line. The black soil became finer, almost powdery, and it clung to boots no matter how carefully we avoided it. When I tapped my heel against a rock, the hum answered back, brief and satisfied. I went to the bend alone in November. The trees leaned inward there. Leaves never touched the black soil. They stopped at the edge, piled up like they'd been warned. The ground was warm through my boots. Alive warm, I pressed my palm to it. It yielded slightly like muscle under skin. Then I felt pressure from below, slow and deliberate, measuring me. I heard Ellis, not his voice, his pattern. When I pulled away, the soil smoothed itself, disappointed. My footprint was already gone. I ran. That night the hum rattled glass. The flashlight flickered in time with it. The next morning I filed a transfer request. It was approved immediately. Years passed, different forests, different ground, but small violations followed me. Dark patches behind sheds, footprints deeper than they should be. In 1978, I received a page from a burned logbook in Ellis's handwriting. Soil retains heat. It doesn't cool, it listens. By 1985, my body reacted before my mind did. I avoided paths without knowing why. I stepped around darkness automatically. I never dreamed of the bend again. Instead, I felt it, waiting. In 1992, a clipping appeared in my mailbox. A missing hiker, an unmarked bend, dark soil in the photograph. I burned it. The ash left a stain that didn't wash away. That is why I am telling this now. Some ground turns black because it is already full, because it remembers, because once it learns your weight, it listens for you everywhere. The soil past that bend was never black for no reason. It was black because it was fed. And it is still hungry,